What the hell? What the hell? What the hell is up? Hi, and welcome to this new experimental podcast of mine. My name is Claire, and I'm here to ask the tough questions in life, such as, what the hell is up? With you? With me? With the world? With those crazy vegan YouTubers out there on the web? This podcast is a play for me to be more honest and to put something out there that might be an encouragement to others. I'm keen on honesty and authenticity, yet I have somewhat learned to hide. So I hope that each podcast episode will allow me to get more comfortable in sharing out about my journey. Topics which will be addressed include my journey of mental health struggles, self-esteem and self-worth, sexuality, and a whole slew of other potentially relevant tidbits of my story. Thanks so very much for tuning in to listen. Grab some coffee or tea and think of this as the coffee shop date of your dreams. Hello there. Welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 4 of What the Hell is Up. Thank you so much for tuning back in to listen. I'm honored and touched that you would be listening to episode 4. And whether you have listened to my first few episodes or if this is the first time you're jumping in, my name's Claire, and this is a new podcast of mine where I'm pondering all sorts of questions. But today I'm kind of like, what the hell is up, everybody? What the hell is going on? And how the hell do I approach this podcast? I recorded an intro, and then I realized that as I was doing it, I was sort of conjuring this eager, excited introduction, and I don't want to bring you down, but I also just kind of want to approach this with some authenticity. So my heart goes out to those who have been more directly affected by the shooting in Thousand Oaks. I've actually been to that neighborhood, and it's always, these kinds of things are just shocking, even though they happen pretty often. And also just anyone who's being affected by the fires in California, my heart goes out to you as well. And there's a lot of stuff going on in people's lives, and now's a good time to reach out and not shy away from loving people with your whole heart. I guess it's so easy when things are going on in our personal lives that feel difficult, feel like challenges to our capacity to extend compassion and love for people, and those are valid. But I guess, I don't know, in my heart I feel like these kinds of things just remind me to, just keep extending compassion and love as much as I can. I know that might sound weird, but just kind of a cryptic way to describe the situation going on in my head and my heart right now. But as I was approaching this podcast, my original intent was to talk about going into nursing and what the hell is up with me becoming an RN. I just became a registered nurse, and also just approaching this profession, which is going to be one of encountering suffering and pain and sickness and death every day. And I guess when I first started to think about recording this podcast, I kind of had this notion in my head of, I kind of want to share with anybody listening that I don't take it lightly that I'll be going into this job where I'm encountering suffering every day. And I guess that has just kind of been hitting me okay, I need to start getting ready for this, because taking care of people means a lot to me, and I guess not everybody experiences that every day, in that interacting with suffering and sickness and pain. But then when things like this happen, and they happen all the time, shootings and natural disasters and oppression from political leaders, all of these things that are so constant on our minds because of everything going on in this day. I think everybody knows what the hell I'm talking about when I mention this interacting with pain and suffering. And each of us touch it in our day, and whether it's more direct or not, everybody is experiencing that aspect of life. So I don't know, I just kind of want to acknowledge that first, that my heart is going out to you if you feel this heaviness, and maybe this suffering I'm mentioning isn't affecting you as much, but I don't know, maybe your own mental health isn't great right now, or maybe a friend of yours is experiencing something that has made you feel something, a family member, whoever it is. I'm sure there are situations that come to your heart and mind when I'm talking about this interaction with suffering and pain. But I do want to talk a little bit about like my experience becoming a nurse and what that means to me, why I want to be a nurse, and yeah, just how important I kind of feel like this calling is for my life. What the hell is up with this new label that I just got? So a few days ago, I actually just found out that I am now a registered nurse. I took the nursing licensure exam and I'm now a registered nurse, and that means that I will be able to start a full-time nursing position in just a few weeks. Very exciting because I've been like trying to get this darn license for a while. I did it through the Board of California, which is it takes a long time for that process to happen, and I had some people on my back asking me when I was going to get my license, and I'm just so glad I have the license now. So yeah, that's awesome. And just having that studying behind me is also amazing. Shout out to all my fellow nursing folks who know what that was like. So now I'm like, well, I'm about to start my nursing career and I've been waiting for this for a while. What the hell is up with that? It's kind of a lot to think about, especially now that I'm doing this. I've kind of gotten in a routine with everything I've been doing in the last few months since I graduated in June, and I've had a bit of a break, which has been a serious blessing. But now I'm just like facing, okay, it's time to get things going. It's time to start the real job. Which, I don't know. I guess I'm really grateful for this break that I've had. But it's interesting how people approach this kind of thing with saying stuff like, what the hell is up with people saying like, oh, now it's time to start your adult career? Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I think it's interesting to look at it that way. It just feels like there is somewhat of a feeling of like, this is it. I'm about to start working and here I am, like I'm about to start my career, almost as if it's some sort of sentence, which I don't want to think of it like that. But I could see kind of why people do think of it like that. But for me, I am extremely excited to begin my work as a nurse. I wouldn't say I've always wanted to be a nurse, but this is a passion of mine, and I feel extremely honored to be able to enter into the profession, which sounds hella dumb, but honestly it's true, because I discovered when I was in college that it kind of is the perfect thing for me, and I want to use my life to take care of people and to help others, which is honestly part of the reason why I started this podcast. I don't even know if it's gonna, but I don't know. I think I am hesitant to, you know, like when people ask you, like, what are you doing with your life? Or asking, maybe you're in a phase of your life where you're not in school or you're not, quote unquote, doing anything, like, but you're doing something, and everybody is doing something, like, no matter what. And so the question of, like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Well, I don't heckin' know, and no one really does. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna be working as a nurse, and I have hopes and dreams for that. But I don't know where it's gonna lead. I don't know where this podcast is gonna lead. And ultimately, I'm more concerned. I was just talking about this with a friend today. I'm much more concerned about the why of what I'm doing necessarily than the what of what I'm doing. And if I can understand the purpose behind what I'm doing in my life, then hopefully that'll inform whatever medium it takes, whether it's getting more into this podcasting stuff or being a nurse or spending my time doing something else in a different capacity. Honestly, it's kind of just crazy to specifically think about not just starting my adult career that I've been like studying for the last 4 years, but also starting this job as a nurse, and becoming a nurse is no light undertaking. And I don't know, a couple of years ago, let's see, in February of 2017, I started thinking about making a podcast, and I started doing I recorded some voice memos, and during that time I was working at a homeless shelter for young adults in Seattle, and then I was also doing my clinical rotations. So what was on my heart at that time was really thinking about the people I was working with, the people I was helping take care of in my clinical and also in the shelter. And so yeah, I thought I would just drop that in here. This week I was in a lot of different settings that made me think about a lot of things about the way that people experience difficult things in life and the way that we support them in those things from a position of not being there. I'm often wondering about what it takes for me to be able to empathize with someone else and how relatable I can be, even if I feel like the trials that I've faced are so much less than those faced by someone else. Sometimes I think about my own experiences that have left me broken, but I don't really think that anything compares with the suffering that I feel like I've encountered in others this week. And I don't think that should be something I take lightly. I don't think it should be something that overwhelms me and leaves me hopeless, but I don't think it's something that I should brush past. But in the areas that I'm facing these things, I also think that I'm expected to be okay with it, and it's expected to be my normal, which is kind of disillusioning in a way, because I don't think that any of the things that the people I've seen are facing should be faced by anyone, and yet there they are facing those things. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering about what to do with that. I also, besides being in my nursing clinicals at the hospital, I've been working at a homeless shelter that's in the U District of Seattle, and I go there once a week. I am an overnight supervisor, which means that I answer phones, and I work with a few other supervisors who are fabulous people who I'm still learning a lot from, and I help check in guests at a desk, and then also answer questions and talk to people, and then I sleep over there, and I have a shift in the night where I just supervise and make sure the space is safe and do a few things in the morning too. It's really chill. I love the people I work with, and the people who stay there are incredible, and I have a lot of opportunities to talk with people, and I had like a really good conversation recently with a girl who is pretty new to homelessness, and when I first started talking to her, I could see how sweet she was. She has this just really sweet, gentle disposition, and I guess like my heart felt kind of sad and worried for her because no one should face homelessness, but I guess some people more than others seem just more vulnerable to things, and she seemed just really gentle, which isn't a bad thing, but I don't know, my heart just hurt for her. And also because most of the people at the homeless shelter are men, and this shelter is for young adults, so ages 18 to 25. Most of them are men, so when I engage with women, I also just kind of have a sense of like wanting to care for them, but she kind of opened up to me about her background and her story, and I guess this is the tidbit I wanted to share just about people experiencing difficult situations, because from what she shared with me, she told me that she's been on the verge of homelessness her entire life, and that's partially because she's just been passed around from family member to family member. She said she didn't really feel wanted or needed, and she didn't really feel like valued because people would find problems with her and want her to go live with someone else, and wow, that's horrible. And I don't know, that really hurt my heart for her, and I was grateful for her to share that with me, but I also just felt really like frustrated that that's her situation, and I told her that I was proud of her for the amount of hope that I could see she had and the kind of optimism that she shared with me, even though she's been like battling homelessness for so long, and even though she's had family members treat her really badly, and even though she gave away everything to go try to live with her dad in a different state, only to find out that he was really abusive emotionally and nearly physically. So with these experiences in mind, I've just been thinking a lot about like how to relate to people and how to share hope and compassion and joy with them while acknowledging that they've faced things that I truly can't imagine. I guess that's a pretty privileged thing to say, but I want to be sensitive to those experiences and hear about them and still not get hopeless. I was telling my small group today that what I need prayer for right now is remaining hopeful and sharing hope with people in the wake of suffering and in the wake of the challenges that life brings. I mean, for me, I think having hope is like having hope in the process of becoming a nurse, and having hope in myself and God that I'm not alone in this and that I have people by my side. But I wonder what hope will look like to share with people who are so in despair. And the people who I've talked to, they don't even despair. They have a sense of hope. And that just gives me a lot of encouragement.
When the moon falls down from heaven, I feel like I'm 7 without a care in the world. without a care in the world, without a care in the world, without a care in the world.
Like I said, I've had a bit of a break since graduation, and I haven't been working at all in the capacity that I was working in at like the homeless shelter or doing anything nursey since graduation, basically. So in between, I mean, I traveled, and that was a blessing, and I studied Spanish, and now I've been working on this podcast and doing some writing and kind of like filling up myself with these other things that I love, and kind of trying to, like, I guess you could say, pour into myself, knowing that the career I'm going into can be really draining. And I guess these little snippets kind of reminded me of like what it feels like to be in that position. And I was also a student, and it was stressful, but now like I'm going to be going into a full-time position as a nurse. And so I've definitely been thinking about what that's going to mean, and trying to start kind of preparing my heart and my mind for encountering suffering and sickness and death and severe mental illness and trauma, and seeing those things on a daily basis. I mean, maybe it's obvious, but I guess, I don't know, I just don't want to take those things lightly. Like, as I go into this career of nursing, I will be seeing like trauma and sickness and pain and suffering every day. And I consider that like a gift, because getting to step into people's lives who are experiencing hardship is a blessing and a gift. But it also is kind of like a heavy notion to process. So yeah, I don't know, it's not something I want to take lightly, because I consider that a pretty significant undertaking. And also just like knowing that I'm super young in the world of nursing and in general. I have so much to learn about what I'm doing, and I know that it's going to be a lot to take in. Yeah, I don't know, I thought I would like share a little bit about why the hell I want to be a nurse, and what I see in that, and like what the meaning is to me. Because for me, nursing like does feel like a vocation. It doesn't feel like just a way to make money. Someone asked me like, if this podcast happened to take off, would you focus on that and quit nursing? And no, the answer is no, I would not. Like, I want to become a nurse. Maybe I won't work at the hospital forever, but taking care of people is a passion of mine. So to me, nursing is a way that I can help see people who have not been seen and bring in those who might be cast aside. I also just consider this act of compassion and caring kind of like the most artistic thing I could do. There's this quote by Van Gogh: "I feel that there is nothing more truly artistic than to love people." And I really believe that, especially in nursing. It's considered like an art and a science, because you have to know the science behind everything, but you also have an artistic component of nursing by creatively taking care of people. And when you're interacting with like the complexity of human beings, it's naturally an artistic endeavor. So definitely, as like I'm approaching this idea, I'll be working on an oncology medical surgical floor of the hospital with the veterans, and the veteran population has like a lot of specific needs, especially with mental health. But that means I'll be working with patients coming in with a variety of conditions, some of them with cancer, some of them with like chronic illnesses, others with more short-term things. So I'll see like a variety of patients and work with a lot of different people, which is awesome. But certainly along the way, I will experience death. And like as a nurse, and I've talked a little bit about this with like people I went through nursing school with, just being more aware of like how finite life is, I think is like kind of inevitable when you work in this profession. And maybe that's why I kind of felt some urgency to like even do this podcast. If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? I might as well do the things I want to do now and share the love that I want to share with people now, because I don't know, as crazy as it sounds, like there's no promises in life, and all we have really is the moment. But as like I'm approaching this idea of death, I think back to experiences I've had encountering death. When my grandmother passed away, I was like very present in her dying process, and I mean at her bedside, kind of helping take care of her in her last days. And I don't know, I think it's, maybe that sounds peculiar that I could say that kind of in such a clear way, but for me it was a lot to do so, but it was a blessing to like be with her in that. And I don't know, I felt like that kind of dying process like did have a lot of peace in it. And she was like older in age, and she was clearly relieved from suffering when she passed away. And just like kind of interacting with her and comforting her held this really special significance in my life. I also, let's see, it was a month before that, I think, or a month after that? No, a month before that, I actually was with my older sister when she gave birth to my niece, and I was in the room and I was kind of like helping her coach through her birth. So being part of both of these experiences was an immense gift. And I know this kind of stuff is not for everybody, but for me, like, I don't know, these events held extreme significance. Like, seeing birth and death within like a span of a few months, and all the emotions that go into each of those processes was like kind of a way to really get close to life and what it means to, I don't know, really live. I know that might sound so cheesy, but really significant experiences for me. If each of those seem like interesting things that you'd want to hear more about, please let me know, because I'm not really sure if I'm kind of grappling with this decision between putting out what I think people want to listen to, but also just sharing out what I want to share. But if you have any thoughts about any of these tangents, any way that you would want me to expand more, I'd love to do so. So please let me know. But I do read this magazine called Comely, and this is a kind of like it's an indie magazine, as they say, from the UK. And I don't even know how I found out about it, but I really love it because it's kind of geared toward women, and they just like have stories and recipes and like all sorts of cute things, and they also have some ads for some expensive products that I probably will never buy, but like it's also just really lovely aesthetically, and that's kind of nice too. This story in here about these different women who all work in areas related to death and dying, and the article was called The Great Beyond, and it was just kind of bringing to light like how important it is to kind of talk about death, and I think it was kind of included because this tends to be a topic we shy away from. Certainly I didn't really start talking about it until I went into nursing school. There's just this one little section that I wanted to read from Wroe, who is an obituary editor at The Economist. So she writes obituaries for people, and what she writes in here is, "I don't think about death as a sad thing. I see it as a continuation of life. It's a stage of life, but a much more intense one. I see that in my own experience of people I know dying. I think about them in extraordinary ways when they die. The pain of the physical disappearance only lasts for a while. Then there's something deeper, more than just a memory. It's a presence." And certainly she's writing from an experience of like being very removed from the people that she is writing about, which is sort of what I will be doing as a nurse. But I guess I was just kind of struck by this idea that something remains after death, whether we can describe that or ever understand it. And also that like it is a stage of life, and one that we'll all experience. And this sentiment also really related to a book that I recently just finished by Thich Nhat Hanh. And if you haven't heard of Thich Nhat Hanh, he's a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist writer, and a lot of his writings have been kind of geared toward like people in the Western world to like access meditation and mindfulness and Buddhism. Totally recommend this book that I just finished by him called You Are Here. For me, it was like a really good intro into meditation, but also just if you're curious about mindfulness, I would recommend it. And I'm very, very new to understanding any of these like Buddhist concepts at all. Like I pretty much know nothing, but there was this chapter about like becoming truly alive, and also kind of how death plays into that. So, okay. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, "In the practice of Buddhism, dying is very important. It's as important as living. Death is as important as being born, because birth and death inter-are. Without birth, there could be no death. Without death, there is no birth. Birth and death are very close friends, and collaboration between the two of them is necessary for life to be possible. So do not be afraid of death. Death is just a continuation, and so is birth. At every moment, death is happening in your body. Some cells are dying so other cells can come to life. Death is indispensable to life. If there is no death, there is no birth, just as there can be no left if there is no right. Don't hold out hope that life will be possible without death. You must accept both of them, birth and death. So maybe that doesn't mean anything to you, but for me, maybe it does. I don't know. I guess I just found this like a beautiful way of looking at things. And if death is closer on your heart right now, then I do not mean to belittle that experience for you, because certainly like part of this process, I think, that is being spoken about here is acknowledging that like death is a very significant aspect of our lives, and one that we should not shy away from or ignore or be afraid of. I think recognizing that can probably help us embrace the feelings that come with our loved ones passing away. But this also, to me, kind of like felt freeing, that in a time when we see like death in the media so much, and having those reminders of just how finite life is, recognizing that, yes, this is a part of life, maybe can help us be a little bit free from the fear that's there. Later on, Thich Nhat Hanh also included this story about someone who was sick and dying, and how this person was like being spoken to by these friends, and basically the friends were trying to encourage seeds of happiness and compassion in this dying man's heart in order that he might have like a peaceful death. But this part, going into nursing, struck me more than anything. To help dying people, you must be very solid. You must have fearlessness within you. You must be able to touch no birth and no death yourself in order to support a person whose manifestation is about to cease. If you want to attend the dying, you must practice. Through practice, you can develop the solidity, the fearlessness, and the techniques that make it possible for you to help people to die in peace. We should never forget that dying is as important as living. Yeah, so I finished that book and I was like, wow. I feel like that's being spoken to me because I'm about to go into a field where it's of utmost importance that I can learn to handle dying peacefully. But also I feel like that notion could just be widely applicable to anybody right now. I apologize that this is all such a heavy topic.
The more I see the way this life was always meant to be, I've had to learn to cast my cares into the wind flowing through my hair.
Aside from life ceasing and just how death is something close to us, I want to talk about a hyggeligt aspect of life, a happy hygge moment, my hygge tip of the day. So today's, I have so many hygge tidbits to share, but I can only include one. So today's hyggeligt tip is to, I can't decide, I really can't decide. Okay, today's hyggeligt tip is to infuse your life with some letter writing. I haven't really spoken about this yet, but I love writing letters, and I also love receiving letters and notes from people. I'm sure like lots of you listeners out there can empathize with loving like handwritten stuff. One of the main reasons I started really like embracing a different kind of letter writing was because I read this book called Eleanor and Thich, and it was all about the relationship that Eleanor Roosevelt had with this woman. She had a like romantic relationship with her during her marriage to FDR. But so they exchanged these letters, and oh, can you hear the footsteps ahead? My sister just got home. I mean, obviously back then, like letter writing was super important to maintaining connections with people, because like obviously there was no technology. There was telegrams, but it wasn't as instantaneous, and you couldn't say very much in a telegram. And honestly, I found that I feel the same way with texting. Like, I can try to, like, mindfully communicate with someone over text, but I have a lot of trouble with it, like, being authentic and really saying what I mean. And on the other hand, I used to be, like, obsessive about journaling, and I would, like, journal all the time, and I would kind of do, like, these play-by-plays of my day and, like, my thoughts and my emotions. But I, like, came to this realization, like, not that long ago, like, probably, like, a few months ago, and I wasn't still doing that, but I was kind of doing something to a degree where like if something was on my heart that I needed to like get out there, I would write about it, but I wouldn't write about it in like a poetical way or fanciful, like sometimes I would, but oftentimes it was just, to me, like looking back, I was like, okay, this was wasted energy because I hate reading this. But it felt really necessary for me to get this out. But I realized a few months ago, the things I was writing in my journal all of those years were things I really wanted to be telling somebody else. And like things that I didn't think people wanted to hear, or like things that felt too heavy to share or stuff like that. But like looking back on it, I'm seriously like, why was I like cooping this up in myself and in my journal? Like, why didn't I share this with somebody? But I also love the written word. And so that's why I feel like letter writing has also given me a way to kind of infuse communications with somebody in like the journal-y style that I have. I think I was in the habit of just like passing on notes of encouragement to somebody, or just like a quick little note that didn't really say that much. But if you like actually sit down and write one of your closest friends or family a letter and actually share with them things that you're going through, or what your life and experience has been like lately, what a gift for them to receive that, and how like authentic of a communication that is. I don't know, I found that like it's been a blessing to me to be able to like write out my thoughts to somebody and just give that away. Like I don't have to look back on it. I'm sharing this with them. But also like, I don't know, I feel like people appreciate like reading things and experiences, and like maybe it's interesting for them, I hope. But I also love letter writing because I can share different things that I like right now with people, and being able to connect with people who are far away through writing letters makes me feel closer to them. I don't know, when I'm like feeling lonely too, I'll sit down and write a letter, because if I don't have plans with somebody, and if there's someone who I really miss, I feel like it's a great opportunity to just like sit down and think about them and write out a letter to them. And it seems like an antiquated an antiquated practice, but I think it's like really, really a good opportunity if you're feeling lonesome, if you're missing somebody, if you want to write something out and have somebody know it. Highly recommend that. So writing letters is my hygge tip of the day.
Without a care in the world, without a care in the world, shining like the sun, without a care in the world.
Friends, I want to thank you again so much for listening to this podcast, where I did choose to focus on some heftier topics, and I just really appreciate you listening. Hopefully something in here might have been meaningful to you. I want to thank Byland, which is the band whose music you've heard throughout this podcast. This song is called 1813. It's from Byland's new album, Desert Days, which just came out a little bit ago. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend their album release and just really loved their whole vibe, and really, really loved this song that, I don't know, I think it kind of speaks for itself, but it definitely hit me, and I was super blessed to be able to put their song in my podcast. So thank you so much, Byland. I truly appreciate that so very much. And yeah, so if you did like that song, the rest of the songs on their album are equally exquisite. You can look for their album is called Desert Days, and this band is Byland. So thank you so much again for having me include this, and I hope everybody enjoyed listening to that lovely snippet throughout this podcast.
When my time comes to lay down my body, you can bring me flowers, but no, I'm in good company. When my time comes to lay down my body, you can bring me flowers, but no, I'm in good company. When my time comes to lay down my body, you can bring me flowers, but no, I'm in good company. When my time comes to lay down my body, you can bring me flowers, but no, I'm in good company.
I hope that this podcast might have at least stirred some thoughts within you, maybe brought you some comfort or encouragement. Maybe you hated all of it. feel free to let me know your comments. And also, the podcast is now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So all of those 3 mediums are at your disposal of listening. And also, it's available in other countries on another platform, which I can't remember the name of. Yeah, that's cool too. Thank you so much for tuning in to listen. I'm with you in spirit wherever you are, and I'm sending you some cozy hygge vibes. So, peace and love, friends. Take care.
I'm shining like the sun.